Pivoting is an incredibly versatile movement option that we use to increase our speed and precision moving around the map. So this is what a pivot looks like. You can see it's just a dash that leaves us facing the direction that we started. So if I pivot to the left, I end facing right. If I pivot to the right, I end facing left. We do this by taking advantage of the instantaneous turnaround in the dash animation. So if you hit the thumbstick back and forth from left to right, you'll see you can instantaneously turn around. Compare that with running left and right, and it takes much longer for your character to turn around. So if we want to perform a pivot to the left, what we do is we want to dash in the left direction. So you can see on my controller in the bottom corner, I hit the thumbstick all the way to the left, and now I'm running towards the left. I then want to turn around during my dash animation, so I press the thumbstick to the right, but I don't want to move in the right direction, so I immediately let the thumbstick return to the neutral position. So once again, a pivot to the left would be left, right, neutral, left, right, neutral, left, right, neutral. Obviously, a pivot to the right would just be the opposite. So while pivoting doesn't seem that useful, it's actually incredibly versatile, and I'll show you some examples of how to apply it at both a low and a high level. Then I'll also show you a good way to practice pivoting.
Using pivots and dashes can make your character very hard to hit. Here, Jigglypuff attacks Donkey Kong, but he pivots out of the way and dashes back in to grab before she can react. Similarly, Kirby will use a pivot side smash to both dodge Link's down air and punish him for it. I like to practice pivoting with Captain Falcon because of his long dash animation. As you can see, long pivots take you the same distance as the lower platforms on Dreamland. Practice these in both directions, and make sure that you make your pivots as long as possible. You'll notice that if you make them too long, you'll enter the run animation and won't be able to immediately turn around. But practicing this way gives you an intuition for his dash length. If you run backwards to where you started instead of simply turning around, then you need to release the thumbstick sooner on your pivots. Once you've practiced long pivots on both directions, practice short, quick pivots as well. With a little work, pivoting can become a standard movement option for you.
Ledge hopping is a technique which increases our options both offensively and defensively in the game centered around the ledge. So all a ledge hop is when we disengage ourselves from the ledge and then use our jump. And we have two options when we disengage ourselves. We can just hit the thumbstick away from the ledge, which is standard, or you can press down, which is another very common technique. The difference is that if you press down, you will immediately fast fall, so on some characters it's a little less safe, but there are circumstances where a faster fall is exactly what you need, and so it's important to be comfortable with both techniques. Especially if you have a main character you like to play, you want to be comfortable with both of those and how your character reacts. It's obviously also important to be comfortable ledge hopping both sides of the stage. And another thing that you want to consider is how far away from the stage can you get and how low can you get while ledge hopping before you're really in danger. And obviously this again is a character specific thing that you should practice by yourself. So the ledge hopping gives us a lot of options. It gives us options to do aerials off stage, and it gives us options to recover with aerials back on stage. And so I'm going to show you some examples that are really short of how we can use this in a match to our advantage, and the different ways in which ledge hopping can be helpful.
Luigi is put on defensive when he has to recover against his opponent. But the Donkey Kong player makes a mistake when he tries to attack Luigi while Luigi has invincibility frames. In response, Luigi ledge hops and punishes his opponent for this mistake. After Samus throws Fox off stage, she immediately grabs the edge. This allows her to punish Fox's recovery, and as soon as he begins charging his up B, she ledge hops out for the easy kill.
The next technique is short hopping. Short hopping is easily one of the most important advanced techniques, and it's fundamental to any high-level playstyle in Smash Bros. So all a short hop is a jump which is significantly lower than a regular jump. So a regular jump takes me so that my head is sort of level with this platform, and a short hop takes me about half that height. I should mention that I'm talking about short hopping here with the C buttons as opposed to the thumbstick. While both are possible, I would say that over 95% of players short hop with the C buttons, and it is much easier, and I think there are many advantages. However, if you want to look up short hopping with a thumbstick, feel free to do that as well. So to perform a short hop, we have to press the C button and release it within 3 frames, which is a very, very short window. And this is very hard to do when you are learning it, but I'm happy to say it becomes quite easy after a while. So you'll notice in the controller in the bottom corner, the C button just glows red for a split second when I short hop. And if I press it even slightly too long, I get the full hop out. So I'll show you now some applications of short hopping and also a good way that I like to practice it. And I will add one more time that this is a technique which is incredibly frustrating at first, but it becomes very, very easy to master if you just put in a little bit of effort. We'll start with a very basic example of how short hopping can be useful. If I'm playing Mario against a Kirby and I want to attack him with a down air, but I'm unable to short hop, I can't simply run towards him and jump and do a down air. He's much too short to be hit by this. Instead, I have to jump and do a down air coming from above. And this is okay, but it is rather slow, and so it means that it should be easy for him to predict and punish what I'm doing. Also, because I'm coming from above, he's able very easily to step to the left or to the right and dodge my attack. So compare that to if we're able to short hop, and all we have to do is run at him and do a short hop down air. And even against Kirby, who's a very short character, he gets hit by all of Mario's down air. Also, it's very quick, and so if we're doing spacing and the Kirby makes a mistake, it's very easy for me to quickly run in and punish him. Finally, because I'm coming from the side, if he moves to the left or right, I'll still very likely hit him with the attack. Short hopping can be invaluable in extending combos, and this can be the difference between your opponent living and your finisher killing them. So here we see Fox's main finisher up smash doesn't quite kill Pikachu. So we can try to do no short hops and do up tilt to forward air to up smash. And this looks good, but it doesn't quite kill Pikachu. So what we need to do is extend the combo slightly using short hops. And we can see here that this does do the trick. I think the best way to learn how to short hop is in 3 steps. The first step is to practice while standing still, and I recommend you do this underneath the Dreamland side platforms, using any character who isn't Donkey Kong. And the reason for this is if you full hop by accident, you'll be above the platform, whereas if you successfully short hop, you'll remain below it, and so that will give you some dynamic feedback. Whereas if you use Donkey Kong and you full hop, you'll be above the platform, but you'll also be above it if you short hop. So although his jumps are definitely different, it's just a little bit harder to get that feedback, especially as you're just learning. Once you feel comfortable short hopping while standing, you're going to want to incorporate short hopping into your runs. And this should be very easy for you if you have good independence between your hands, but it's sometimes harder for some people. The final thing to do is to add aerials. And you should be comfortable doing all the aerials, not just the ones that you feel easiest. Ultimately, this is our goal when we practice short hopping, because we do short hopping to extend our combos and work on punishing, and so being able to do whatever aerial we want on command is really the goal. Z-canceling is arguably the most important advanced technique in Super Smash Bros., and this is because it allows us to increase the frequency of our aerial attacks, and in so doing we increase our spacing potential and our combo game. So as an offensive technique, it provides us with almost everything that we need. So I'll show you Z-canceling just by example, and the quintessential example of the Link down air. So Link's down air is a good move with high priority, which means it beats lots of other attacks, and also good damage. But the problem is when you land, your sword gets stuck in the ground and you're unable to move until you retrieve it. and this is actually quite a long time as far as aerial attacks landing lag go. So this is what it looks like if I do z-cancel links down air. As you can see, all of the landing lag from the aerial is gone, and I'm able to immediately choose to do whatever I want to as soon as I land. So this is obviously incredibly important, and it's like night and day if you compare the two. So all I'm doing here is I'm tapping and releasing the Z trigger right before I hit the ground while performing the aerial attack. You can think of this as the offensive version of a tech. If you remember, a tech is that technique we talked about, where if you're hit by an attack from an opponent, you can press Z before you hit the ground and you'll recover more quickly. Z canceling is when you are dealing an attack from the air, you can press Z before you land and you'll be able to recover more quickly. So they are analogous. The huge difference is that the Z cancel is much more strict in the timing, so it has about half the frame window of a tech, meaning that you just have to be a little more precise in when you press the Z trigger. So every aerial can be Z cancelled: back air, forward air, up air, neutral air, and obviously we've seen down air. But I should mention that special moves like links up B cannot be Z cancelled. This is only for aerials, which is just attacks that you use the A button or the R button in the air to perform. I'm not going to show you guys any examples of why Z cancelling is useful because I think that's pretty self-evident. I will, however, show you some good ways to practice, which I hope will greatly decrease the time that you guys are unfamiliar with this technique. So it does take a lot of practice to get good at Z cancelling, but I think there are some tricks that you can learn and some ways that you can diagnose your errors that will increase that learning process. This section is about diagnosing your errors while practicing Z cancelling, and so I'm trying to answer the question, when I miss a Z cancel, what did I do wrong? Now the way I see it, there are only three things that can go wrong with Z cancelling. The first is that you Z cancel too late, which is the same as not Z cancelling at all. The second is that you Z cancel too early, and the last is that you Z cancel too slowly. So I'm going to talk about each of those briefly. If you're playing Link on his down air and your sword gets stuck in the ground, then it means you missed your Z cancel. And so there are two things that could have happened. The first one I said is that you didn't Z cancel or Z canceled too late, and so you pressed the Z trigger after you had already hit the ground. And this isn't going to help you at all, because the whole point of Z cancelling is that we press and release the Z trigger after we aerial, but before we hit the ground. The other thing that can happen is that we Z cancel too early, and so you'll see in the bottom left of the screen, the little controller, that I jump and do an aerial and press the Z trigger, but I still don't get the Z cancel. And this is because I'm missing the frame window. So I'm trying not to get too complicated here. Pretty much what's going on is that you have to Z cancel while you're close to the ground, but before you actually hit the ground. And so it's possible to press the Z trigger too early, and it won't register as a Z cancel. And the whole point of practicing Z canceling is learning an intuition for when this window is, so that you can get successful Z cancels. So if your sword gets stuck in the ground on Link's down air, you know that you either Z canceled too late or too early, and I leave it up to you to figure out which one is the case. The last thing that can happen is that you can Z cancel too slowly, and this will happen if you do cancel the aerial, but your shield pops out, even if it's just for a second. What's going on here is that you're hitting the frame window with your Z cancel, but you're not releasing the trigger soon enough, and that's causing your shield to come out. And this is bad for a number of reasons, but first and foremost, it removes some of our options. As I said earlier in this video, there are only certain moves that we can do out of shield, and so if all your Z cancels pull up your shield for a little bit, you're severely limiting yourself after you land. So the solution for this is to press and release the Z trigger a little bit more quickly. You can think of it a little bit like a short hop. We just have to lightly and quickly press the button and not hold it for too long. So if your sword hits the ground then you either Z cancel too early or too late. And so that's something to fix. And if your shield pops up, then it means that you Z cancel too slowly and you need to be quicker with releasing the Z trigger. And so if you keep this in mind while you're practicing Z canceling, it should make the learning process a little bit smoother because it'll allow you to diagnose your errors and adjust accordingly.
Another thing to keep in mind is an issue of timing. You can sit in training mode all day practicing Z cancels until you have them down 100%. But if your attack collides with a player's shield, you'll spend slightly longer in the air. This causes many players to miss their Z cancels in a match. The problem is even worse if your attack actually hits an opponent. It's important to remember while you're practicing Z canceling that the frame window applies not to when you perform the aerial, but when you hit the ground.
Unfortunately, there's no trick to learning Z canceling. It really is just a matter of repetition. But I have come across a very good drill to get a lot of repetitions in a short amount of time. This was shown to me by a European player named King Funk. And so what you're doing is using the relationship between Captain Falcon's slant hop and the Dreamland side platform heights to get a lot of repetitions of your forward air in. And I recommend you do this on Dreamland with Captain Falcon, although it will work for other characters. The reason this is so good is because not only is Captain Falcon fast enough to make sure that you get tons of Z cancel practice in, but his forward air is really noticeable when you fail a Z cancel, and so it'll allow you to diagnose your errors very easily and know that when you've made a mistake. Whereas a lot of other characters have very limited landing lag when they miss a Z cancel. As you can tell, all you're doing is running off one of the side platforms and doing a Z canceled forward air, and then jumping onto the other side platform and Z canceling that forward air. And you'll notice that because Z canceling is a dynamic process, you have to time your Z cancels based on your aerials differently when you're going up the platform as when you're going down. And so it's a good way to make sure that you have a good intuition for the frame window when you're practicing Z canceling.